Welcome back to the Sight Black YouTube channel. I'm your host Shad, and today we back at it again with another non-music reaction video. And we got PBS, man. We got the video, how did this rural town become a stop on the Chitlin circuit? Man, another PBS video. You know, it's a shame what they did to PBS, man. They don't really show PBS anymore. I think, that has something to do with the politics and all of that. But PBS was a quality channel in informing the public and things like that. So I'm happy to dive into what their perspective is on the Chitlin circuit. A lot of our black greats, they got their start on the Chitlin circuit. You know what I'm saying? This was the avenue for them to get on and show their stuff, get out there and perform to build an audience and get people to be fans of them. A lot of people in today's world like to learn from this era of grinding, because I seen something where Jermaine Dupri said something like, artists today, they think they're the Beyonce. You know what I mean? They think they can just drop albums out of the blue and then people are just gonna be excited for them and consume it or whatever. But what he was saying, like, you got to go out there and like show your face. I mean, you got to go out there and really work that circuit. So what better example of that than the Chitlin circuit? So let's go ahead and dive into what that was like and what this town had to do with that. Without further ado, let's get into it.
So imagine it's the 1950s and you're a fantastic black musician, a combination that makes touring in the South during the era of segregation very dangerous. But you were born to play R&B, and this is your livelihood. What do? You work the Chitlin circuit, of course. And in doing so, you might stop in Alabama's first all-black self-governed municipality. The Chitlin Circuit was a network of performance spaces primarily in the South and Eastern United States, created out of necessity by and for black musicians, comedians, and other entertainers, starting in the early 1930s during the height of Jim Crow segregation. The Royal Peacock in Atlanta, DC's Howard Theater, Chicago's Regal Theater, and the Apollo Theater in Harlem are some of the most famous. These venues were welcoming spaces for black artists and patrons free from the discrimination and hostility of white establishments. Legends like Tina Turner, B.B. King, Sam Cooke, the queen of soul herself, Aretha Franklin, and yes, James Brown all performed on the Chitlin circuit. In fact, it's hard to name a black entertainer from this time period that didn't get their start on the circuit. I mean, Beyonce even mentions the Chitlin circuit in her 2024 album, Cowboy Carter. This was a big...
Speaking of Beyonce, everybody trying to do the Beyonce thing where she don't drop the album, but here she is mentioning the Chitlin circuit.
deal that continues to influence music today. So our R&B musician just played an amazing show at Birmingham's Carver Theater, but their next stop is the Royal Peacock in Atlanta. Today, that's a quick 2.5-hour drive, but that was not the case in the mid-20th century. Before the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, the modern-day interstate didn't exist, and travel was not as efficient. In rural areas...
And quiet as kept, like, a lot of those highways was actually built through black communities. So they destroyed a lot of those black communities in order to build those highways. That's just something, not mentioned.
Especially in the South, black communities played a huge role in making sure folks had a safe place to rest and even earn some money on the way to the next big city. And that is how Hobson City, located almost exactly at the halfway point between Birmingham and Atlanta, emerged as a premier stop for black performers on the Chitlin circuit. Hobson City was founded in 1899 and is recognized as the first municipality entirely governed by black folks in Alabama. I mean, just imagine, 34 years after slavery was abolished, a community of black Americans established a city during an era when almost any attempt at progress was met with racial violence. Encountering a town governed by black leadership was a rarity in the South. For touring black entertainers, a self-sustaining all-black town was not only a safer stop, it was also a place of empowerment. But setting up a town in the deep South was anything but easy. Before Hobson City was established, it was a black neighborhood in Oxford, Alabama called Maury Quarter. According to local sources, a black man ran for the office of Justice of the Peace in Oxford and won. This made local whites furious. Oxford's mayor then petitioned the state legislature to redraw the boundaries of the city to exclude Maury Quarter, kicking its citizens out of the city and disempowering them from voting. After being excluded, the residents of Maury Quarter decided to establish themselves as a distinct municipal district. The area was formally incorporated on August 16, 1899, and renamed Hobson City.
One of the things that I hear about Hobson City during that time is that they were really self-sufficient, that they really didn't have to rely upon anybody outside of Hobson City for their needs.
While the early achievements of the all-black town showed promise, the neighboring towns in Alabama were far from supportive. In just the first 10 years, 3 attempts were made to eradicate the town. The surrounding communities tried to annex Hobson City, and the Alabama legislature tried to revoke the city's incorporation twice. None of these attempts were successful. Then, in the summer of 1910, a black policeman in Hobson City arrested 2 white bootleggers, fueling racial tension.
They were arrested by black police officers. They were in a jail controlled by blacks. And so when the word got out, it was stated that some of the white men wanted to come and just burn up Hobson City.
To calm tensions, the bootleggers were eventually handed over to the White County Sheriff. 9 years later, in 1919, the Red Summer began. This was a series of racial attacks across the United States.
I was gonna get into that. That's what I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with the Red Summer. It was so many like black towns and things like that around the time where black people was running a lot of these towns. Had thriving black communities and all that. The most famous instance of this is obviously Black Wall Street, Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But yeah, man, like I know there's a Georgia municipality that was a black town that was incorporated by black people, which was I think Chubbs. I think it was called Chubbstown. There was a football player named Nick Chubbs whose family come directly from that. So yeah, like that's interesting. And then you got speaking of the Red Summer, you got the whole thing with the Lake Lanier. Everybody know about the infamous Lake Lanier where everybody like you get these mysterious drownings and stuff like that. But before they made it a lake, it was a black town and all the black residents got ran out. But let's see what they say though.
States, primarily with white mobs targeting black communities. Hobson City's then mayor, Newman O'Neill, received multiple death threats from the Ku Klux Klan. After reportedly being beaten near his home, O'Neill fled north, never to return. And despite its early legal victories, ambiguity emerged over Hobson City's legitimacy when its original incorporation records were lost. The missing records caused decades of issues around access to funding for city infrastructure, things like public schools, parks, roads, and utilities. Nevertheless, this black community stood firm. From the 1930s into the 50s, the town began to thrive, and businesses, churches, parks, and a school known as Calhoun County Training School were established. Modeled after Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute, this was the only school in Calhoun County that would serve rural black students, and it drew learners from various rural areas across the county, serving as a hub for education.
They had everything, they had the school, they had the churches, they had the businesses, they had baseball on weekends. So this was a good place to live for black people, and it was a thriving community. It didn't get a lot of help from the federal government and other agencies that provided for other towns, but they continued to thrive.
The Chitlin circuit was also alive and well. With major acts coming through town, Hobson City became a regional hub for black entertainment. By the late 1950s into the early 60s, Hobson City was booming. Some of the most popular venues in Hobson City were the bingo halls and clubs owned by local businessman Cleve Holloway, which drew in black people from around the region who were longing for entertainment.
Cleve Holloway probably did more for Hobson City than anybody. Economically, he was making money, and he had money to share, and he would share. He had probably 3 nightclubs there in town that Chitlin circuit would probably visit. He built homes, financed them himself for some of the people in the community. You name it.
If he made money, Hobson City made money. It was all about giving folks what they were not able to get for themselves.
You need to be talked about more.
With the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the vital work of desegregation began across the nation. But it's crucial to acknowledge that many black communities were left without the necessary support to navigate the challenges of desegregation. Integration brought both opportunities and challenges to the Chitlin circuit. On one hand, it allowed black performers access to new audiences, and famous Chitlin circuit artists like James Brown, Ray Charles, and Aretha Franklin skyrocketed into mainstream stardom. But on the other hand, small black-owned venues faced increased competition, ultimately leading to the glory days of the circuit fading into the history books. And Hobson City took a hit too. In 1972, Judge Stringer, a pastor and businessman, took over as mayor of a struggling Hobson City. Mayor Stringer quickly became known for his innovative approaches to gaining external support for the town.
We believe in connecting to bigger figures, larger than life people to bring some attention to Hobson City. And hoping that at some point we might could get them to come in and invest in Hobson City, maybe open some businesses. And he would bring in celebrities like Hank Aaron, Don Newcomb, Red Fox, James Brown. I mean, you're listening to James Brown on the radio, and then the next day he's sitting in your living room eating collard greens and fried chicken and cornbread. And I mean, wow. As a kid, that was probably about like a kid now sitting around Jay-Z or somebody.
Stringer's efforts to bring Black celebrities and leaders to Hobson City not only gained national attention, but also increased the town's credibility and legitimacy. This newfound recognition opened doors to financial opportunities crucial for its development.
Mayor Stringer was, in my opinion, maybe that Renaissance mayor that we had. He had a lot of contacts because he was an African American preacher, and so he had connections through working with local pastors and being able to get resources.
Just as Hobson City appeared to be on the path to progress, financial misconduct led to Stringer's resignation in 1978. The conviction was for embezzling $172, about $850 today. His departure marked a decline in Hobson City's prominence as entertainers he had attracted stopped visiting the town. Since then, the city has struggled financially. But if there's one thing we've learned about Hobson City, it doesn't give up. It took almost 100 years, but in 2018, Hobson City was officially incorporated again, opening doors for future funding opportunities. Today, our innovative R&B musician who hit the Chitlin circuit to make a living might look more like Chance the Rapper, who independently produced and released his Grammy-winning album in 2017. Or maybe more like award-winning banjo player Rhiannon Giddens, who helped Beyonce reclaim country for Black artists when Texas Hold'em hit #1. Black entertainers and entrepreneurs continue to innovate and reclaim spaces they historically have been forced to leave behind. And now more than ever, it's crucial to acknowledge that many towns like Hobson City continue to struggle to navigate the challenges caused by decades of exclusion. It's up to the surrounding communities to reinvest and support the people and places that bear the brunt of history and come out the other side. Despite enduring systemic racism and oppression, communities like Hobson City and pioneering cultural movements like the Chitlin Circuit exemplify how Black excellence perseveres against all odds. If you want to learn more about the history of the Chitlin Circuit and how to support the Black communities in your state, then click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to PBS Origins so you don't miss a single episode of In the Margins.
But yeah, man, that was an interesting video. What it just tell me, we just got to get back to rebuilding that infrastructure that we once had, because that infrastructure brought wealth, opportunities, jobs, and stuff to our communities. But it's like, it talked about how like integration and all of that kind of like eroded a lot of that infrastructure. You see what I'm saying? So now we had to compete for the talent that we, pretty much cultivated, the venues and all of that. Like we had to compete, and we weren't able to compete. So we got to get back to valuing our infrastructure. We got to get back to supporting our infrastructure. That's why the platform that I'm trying to create with this, I want this to kind of serve as like a way for a lot of the talent in our communities to be able to go through and get on in that manner and in that fashion. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this topic and what you feel about not just the Chitlin Circuit. You can talk about Chitlin Circuit as well, but like just these Black towns that used to exist that struggled, but then integration happened and they were no longer needed. They kind of fell by the wayside. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But if you enjoyed my reaction, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you are aware of when we upload these videos. Before we get out of here, I want to give a special thank you to my Patreon subscribers: Scott Levine, C. Rob, That One, Corey Buckman, Complex, Lena Pun, Queen Momo, Tony Campbell, Sonya, and Sylvia Walker. These videos aren't possible without you guys, so I appreciate all the support that you give this channel. But with that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. As always, peace.